when you talk about the matrix and make the comparison, there's a reality and then there's the fictional world, which is the one those codes create, called the matrix. Isn't this the real world? That's the question I have for you. Isn't this reality?
Very good question. Look, I'm going to answer you with a section from the Torah that explains it perfectly. It explains it in coded language, which I will decode here for everyone to understand. The original text is in Hebrew. Have you heard many times that we live in a dream, that life is a dream? Calderón de la Barca, life is a dream. Many authors throughout history have said that this is actually a dream. Well, in the Torah, it is said that Joseph, the biblical character, Joseph, who was the vice pharaoh of Egypt, son of Jacob, had a dream and was an expert in interpreting dreams. So how does the Torah say it? How does the Hebrew of the Torah say it? It says, Yosef halom halom. That is, Yosef dreamed a dream. Yosef halom. Yosef dreamed halom halom, a dream. Well, it would be enough to just say Yosef dreamed, right? Or Yosef had a dream? No. It literally says Yosef dreamed a dream. The Torah doesn't use words redundantly without purpose. And the answer is that it's a code that means it exists within the soul. Yosef symbolizes the soul. And within the soul, there is the ability to dream, but within the dream, there is another dream. That is, it's a succession of dreams within dreams. Answering your question, is this world real? It's not either. Nothing is real. Everything is a dream within a dream. And the way out, let's say, of that process of dreaming within dreaming, it's only possible through the elevation of consciousness, which will ultimately lead you to integrate yourself into the source, and there you will stop dreaming. Matrix tells you that too.
What is the source? The Creator, God, Jesus Christ, Allah, Buddha. It doesn't matter the religion. They all talk about an entity, a force, a creative, organizing energy.
That's an intelligence, right? The source is an intelligence that has the ability of the eternal, that has the ability to do everything and to create everything without absolutely any limitation of any kind. What the creative intelligence does is that it limits itself in a movement that the Kabbalists call the simcha, that is, since the source has no limit, I put an artificial limit on it within an artificial environment. Let's call it the first artificial environment. The Kabbalists call it the Tzimtzum Aleph, and it withdraws. I create an environment, I withdraw. Tzimtzum means to withdraw. I withdraw and generate a space. In the space I create, I generate a reality. But within that reality, I then withdraw again and in turn create another reality. Chincham bet, the second chincham, the second withdrawal. Well, the purpose of the source, the sages say, is to know itself, to recreate itself, to play. The most beautiful thing you can do is to recreate yourself and play. Play at living. Life is a game. Life has a goal, which is happiness. There's a word I really like, which is happiness. In English, it's called joy, and I love how it sounds. In Hebrew, it's simcha, which has the same letters as the word Mashiach, just rearranged. So what is Mashiach? The Messiah is finding your simcha, your inner happiness, regardless of external circumstances. Why? Because you have understood that you are in direct connection with the source and that you are the source. In a portion, in a fractal. But are you the source? Is the source in you, or are you the source? Does it matter?
I understand perfectly. So what power do numbers, numerology have? What power do Hebrew letters have, knowing them? Because you said before that knowing the code can alter your reality for the better. I want you to explain that to me a little bit.
The Hebrew letters are 22 Hebrew letters. The Hebrew alphabet is 22 Hebrew letters. We already have a very important number there, 22. I'm saying this so everyone can start noting down important things. And the 22 Hebrew letters are the computational code, the keyboard with which the programmer programs reality. You can allow reality to be programmed on autopilot because it has a function. I mean, by default, it has an autopilot function. The autopilot function. It comes in the events that you experience in your life. It comes from the soul pact that you make before incarnating in this world. And it comes from the genealogy into which you incarnate. You select the specific genealogy to incarnate into for experiencing particular lessons and events. This genealogy is deliberately chosen over others, because it's going to provide you with the path to be able to have those experiences, to be able to rectify your soul. So Hebrew is the computational code of all reality, including the computation of your soul. Let's view the soul as an algorithm. When you understand that the soul is like an algorithm, I'm making an analogy here, it's something very difficult to explain, obviously. A great Kabbalist named Isaac Luria once said that there was a computation involved in this matter, who was able to see Hebrew letters on people's foreheads, which were the components of their soul. And so he could see on a person's forehead a letter that was twisted, one that was upside down, another that was half broken. Meaning that this was the rectification that person had come to do in this world, or he was walking through a cemetery without knowing there was a cemetery, and he was identifying, look, here is such and such person buried, here is another one buried. That is, he transcended the material level of knowledge. Because he had integrated the power of the Hebrew letters within him, he understood the power of the Hebrew letters. Why are the Hebrew letters so important? Because they are activated within you as you study them. The Kabbalists call it clothing. The letters are already within you. You are made of them. Everything is made of Hebrew letters. Like computer code, of course, everything is computed with that material. Now then, many of them are deactivated, they're dormant, many of them are malfunctioning, or they're broken, or they're blurred. And each of the 22 Hebrew letters has tremendous power to make you live experiences that transform your life. How? For example, I teach the 22 Hebrew letters in a specific program at my school. But anyway, the important thing is to understand that in each class I teach one letter. For instance, in one class I teach the letter Aleph and Beth in the next. And I give the students a series of exercises to meditate on the letter, to make art about the letter. In other words, many practices that create the power of this letter and computational code is activated within you. During that week and the following ones, when the person is doing the practice, they notice changes within themselves. The dreams become much more powerful. They start receiving messages, in reality, what are called synchronicities. And they begin to find meaning in them. He also starts to understand how things fit together. He gains a deeper understanding of reality automatically. Why? Because the codes start to activate. That's what happened to Neo in The Matrix. What happens to Neo? Neo is living a normal life, and suddenly he sees on his computer, follow the white rabbit. He follows the white rabbit, and a person shows up at his door and he sees the white rabbit tattoo. He had two choices. It can't be coincidental, I believe it, and follow the white rabbit. Or I ignore it and go to sleep, you know? So Hebrew letters have that effect. They have the effect of activating potential. That your soul has an eternum without limit in terms of expanding consciousness, so that you can make this world a Garden of Eden. The concept of the Garden of Eden is not a dimension that can exist outside of this world. On the contrary, it is a dimension that we all have the obligation to make real in this very physical world. To make this world a Garden of Eden.
I understand perfectly.